name is Drew Wooten. Welcome to Old Dominick Distillery. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story, and then we'll make a couple of drinks a little bit later. Our story starts with Domenico Canali. He moved to America as a 16-year-old from Italy, and he came here to work for his uncle. His uncle was in the food business. Basically, that meant he was a food distributor. Well, Domenico worked for him for about 7 years. Basically, he had mules pull fruit and produce carts around downtown, which was a pretty filthy job due to the way the streets were back then. No pavement, it smelled bad. Downtown Memphis was pretty much of a swamp. But he worked for him for 7 years and decided to start his own company, and he started Deacon Alley and Company. That company is still family owned. His great-great-grandsons, Chris and Alex Canali, who are first cousins, run the company now. He also, in addition to selling all of his food, produce, things like that, decided to sell whiskey. He didn't make whiskey, but he bought barrels of it, and he aged it in his warehouse, which was on Hewling Avenue, and it was called Hewling Station. And he did really well with the whiskey. He was selling a lot of it, and then in 1880, he decided to create another product, and he created the Old Dominic Toddy. The toddy was meant to be ready to drink right out of the bottle. It's a little lower proof, it's sweetened a little bit, it's whiskey based, so it's basically a cocktail in a bottle. And that really took off. They were prescribing it in hospitals, they were selling it all over town, all sorts of things. They did prescribe a lot of alcohol for various ailments back in those days. I wish they still did that. I've tried using my health savings card at the liquor store, doesn't work. If it did, I'd probably get a strongly worded letter from the insurance company. Anyway, it really took off. Business was booming. Well, then in 1909, Prohibition hit, which was about 10 years ahead of the federal government. So that kind of put a damper on the alcohol sales. And they basically, for the most part, quit selling alcohol. Well, the food company grew immensely during this time. Their footprint for distribution started expanding all over the Southeast. They moved into some other more non-perishable offerings and really grew by quite a bit. Well, when Prohibition ended, the first people in the alcohol business that were ready to go immediately were the beer companies. It doesn't take very long to make beer, but what they needed were people to sell and distribute their beer on the local levels, the big national companies. Well, Deacon Alley, like a lot of other food companies, jumped on this, and they became the sole distributor for Anheuser-Busch for West Tennessee. And they did that for nearly 70 years. And over this time, the company kept growing, they diversified a little bit. And then, in the early-ish 2000s, they decided to sell the food company as well as the liquor company. They had been approached by someone that was interested in buying the rights to the brand, the Old Dominick brand. There's a lot of old liquor brands, you're not buying the recipe or the distillery, you're buying the story and the marketing that goes with that. And that kind of made them think that, well, maybe we want to do it ourselves. We've been in the alcohol business for 70 years. We understand distribution. We have the capital to do it. So they decided to bring back the liquor brand. And the first thing they really wanted to bring back was the toddy. And because they saw so many, they had records of how well it sold, they had old advertisements, price list, everything except for the recipe. So they didn't quite know what was in it. But they got their hands on an old bottle that had never been opened. It still had the wax seal on it. And they decided to taste it. It was a horrible idea. It didn't taste good. It was about 100 years old. We recommend drinking it in the first 50 to 60 years at the very least, but they didn't, and they spit it out immediately. But what they were able to do is get a sample sent to a lab. And that lab was able to reverse engineer it and tell them what it was made from. So they came up with the recipe we sell today based on that. So that was the first thing they knew they wanted to make. But we also make a couple of vodkas, we make a gin, and we have 3 different whiskeys now. And in 2017, we opened to the public. They broke ground in about 2013, but they were able to start selling and doing tours and everything here on site, which we still do tours. Now we do them Thursdays through Sundays. We do it noon, 1:30, 3 o'clock, 4:30, and 6. And then our bar also opens at noon, and that stays open till 9. Now we have a full bar with beer as well as cocktails. You can buy any of our spirits. You can do a tasting as well. And the tours end with a tasting as well. And we have a full retail shop, which is also, available. People usually go in there before or after tours. You can buy our products as well as a bunch of Old Dominick related items. So that's basically the history of the distillery. I'll kind of tell you a little bit about my background. I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I've been in the basically bar restaurant business since 1994 with a couple of interruptions, but mostly that's what I've done for the most part. All sorts of bar, restaurant, basically every job in a restaurant or a bar. Primary focus last 10 or so years has been on the bars and on, you know, spirits, liquor, wine, setting up the bar, training the staff, all of that. But I love the business, and they brought me on here to really improve our cocktails and have a cocktail bar that showcases our products. All right, now it's time to make a couple of drinks. The first one I'm gonna do is gonna be called the Pink Palace. Good local tie-in to the name. So that drink is gonna include a red currant, mint, and Szechuan pepper syrup. I'm gonna run you through how I make that a little bit. So you can see I've got all this mint. Over in this pot behind me, I have a big pot simmering of simple syrup. I'm gonna dump that mint in here while it's simmering a little bit. I'm gonna press it down, and it's just gonna simmer away for a little bit, and then I'm gonna let it sit. And probably an hour or two later, I'll strain it and I'll have a mint syrup. Then I'm gonna combine that mint syrup in equal parts. Now the simple syrup is made with 2 parts sugar, 1 part water. I like it a little thicker that way. It's called a rich simple syrup. But I'm gonna combine that mint syrup after I have it simmered in there a little bit with a red currant puree. And that's gonna give me this delicious syrup. I'm also gonna put a couple of ounces. I make about a quart of the syrup, and I use about 2 ounces of this pepper tincture. Now this is Szechuan peppers, which I got at the Asian market. And I'm gonna soak those overnight in a unaged Tennessee whiskey, which is about 110 proof, and that's gonna infuse it with all of those flavors of the peppercorn, which is very floral. It kind of numbs your tongue out a little bit. It's absolutely delicious with the red currant. So I'm gonna have the syrup made. I'm also gonna use lime juice and some Angostura bitters. So let's get to the drink. First thing I'm gonna do is have 1.5 ounces of gin. I like measuring all my cocktails just for consistency more than anything. They need to taste the same every time, whether I make it or one of the other bartenders makes it. I'm gonna use 1/4 ounce of our Amaro. We do make a line of stuff here just for the bar to be able to use in cocktails that we don't sell anywhere else. I'm gonna use 3/4 ounce of the red currant syrup. And then I'm gonna use 1/4 ounce of lime juice. Now I'm gonna shake this up really well. And I'm gonna strain it. You can see this beautiful color that it comes out as. And I'm gonna top it with a little tonic. My favorite brand is Q brand mixers. I use their tonic, I use their ginger beer, ginger ale. I also use quite a bit of their grapefruit soda. It's available in most groceries and definitely at liquor stores. I'm gonna put a little ice on here. Then I'm gonna add a little bit of Angostura bitters. This is actually a combination of half Angostura bitters and half house-made orange bitters. If you don't wanna make your orange bitters, you can easily buy some. And that is the Pink Palace. Now, I don't feel like I'm doing a proper video unless I take a drink of it, so. Tastes delicious, it's fantastic. Now we're gonna make one called the One Beal. Basically, the One Beal is a twist on an old fashioned. Now, in my opinion, old fashions shouldn't be messed with very much. It's still a very basic drink. You shouldn't be muddling a bunch of cherries and oranges up. It needs to be basically sweetened whiskey with bitters in it. So this is gonna have 1/2 ounce of a rich Demerara sugar syrup, as well as 1/2 ounce of water and 2 ounces of whiskey. For this drink, I'm gonna use our wheat whiskey. Now, this is a little bit lighter than our straight bourbon. It's 83% wheat. There's a little bit of corn and some malted barley, but it's a very soft whiskey. And I felt like it went really well with chocolate bitters. And I'm gonna put this big, beautiful ice cube here in it. And that's the base of it. So first thing I'm gonna do is add the whiskey. I'm gonna add 2 ounces of our wheat whiskey. And I have the Demerara syrup and the water already mixed together just to save a step. I'm going to add an ounce of that. And I'm going to add 5 dashes of Angostura chocolate bitters. It's absolutely delicious. It's a very new product. It's fantastic. Now I'm going to garnish it with a lemon swath. Now this lemon swath, pretty important that the reason you're doing this, not because it looks pretty, although it does, you want to get the oils that are in the skin over the drink. So I'm going to squeeze that over the drink, and all the oils that are in that skin are going to go into the drink. Then I'm going to rub it around the rim to get some of that on there. I'm going to put it in there. Then I'm going to garnish it with a delicious Amarena cherry. These are absolutely amazing. And that's it. That's the one deal. It's absolutely beautiful. It's delicious. But the chocolate bitters and the wheat whiskey go fantastic. This is the same exact recipe as our old-fashioned, our traditional old-fashioned done with our bourbon, except I'm substituting the wheat whiskey. And I would use this combination of Angostura and house-made orange bitters for the traditional old-fashioned. So cheers. Mm.